All right. Happy Sunday. Oh, let me sit. Happy Sunday. It is Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday um for Success Starter series as the last Sunday in the month of May. May has been Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've been talking all about doing the work to kind of just keep yourself together and all around, all of that. And for the last Sunday of the month, we're going to be talking about closing out your month like a boss. Because you're the boss, you're in control of your own life, and I want to make sure that you're equipped with the tips, the tools, the information that you need to close out this month and get yourself ready for the next month. Because this last full week of the month is truly the last week of this month. Because we end this month on Saturday, the 31st, and we kick off next week June 1st. And y'all know I love starting a new month on a Sunday or a Monday. Like when the first hits on that day, it's giving chef's kiss. But as your productivity and accountability coach, for those who don't know, I'm all about helping you to find that hidden time in your day, time that you can use to pour back into yourself as you pursue your goals, your purpose, and your life passions while still maintaining your current responsibilities without the stress, without the overwhelm, and without the burnout. And so we want to talk about, like I said, closing out your month like a boss. And we're going to use the Lee method, look, examine, and execute, to guide us through 3 things that you need to do to help you to close out this month and get you prepared for the next month. And so as we dive in, feel free to drop any questions in the comments, even if you're here on the replay, and I'll be sure to go back and answer those for you. So when it comes to closing out your month, we talk a lot about, and I've talked, excuse me. We talk a lot about, and I've talked a lot about, how sometimes we get in such a rush to plan for the next month that we don't do the work to kind of finish out the month that we're in. And with this month truly ending with, the end of the week, this is the perfect reminder to help you to make that transition, to do the work, to plan and prepare while also getting ready for the next. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to look at what happened this month. We need to take some time to reflect back over what actually happened. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't want to just look at what you planned to happen, what you planned to do. We want to look at the actuality, the reality of what was done, what actually got done. We set goals and we plan our month, but sometimes we don't actually do the work and go after the goals of the month that we set. And you might be like, what, girl? We plan the month, but sometimes that's all we do. We make a plan, but we never actually go back and look at the plan. Like our goals. Sometimes we set goals, but we never actually go back to look at the goals. And if you never go back to actually look at the goals, how are you going to actually do the work to hit the goals if you're not even looking to see what it is you're supposed to be doing? And so as you take time to look back and reflect over the month, do it without judgment. We're doing it for informational purposes, not for you to judge yourself as, oh my gosh, I'm so bad, I can never do anything right, anything like that. We want to celebrate the wins. We want to look back, we want to acknowledge the good that has happened, even those small wins. Like maybe we had this big goal, but we hit part 1 of it, but not the entire thing. Celebrate the wins. Because in taking the time to celebrate the wins, even those small ones, you start building the momentum to make those small wins medium-sized wins, to make them big wins, to make them large wins, all of that. And so when you can identify and celebrate those small wins, you might see the struggle or the incongruence maybe of why this win wasn't the full win that you set out to have and why it was only the small win. And so sometimes when you do that work, you can identify what went wrong. Like, yes, we're celebrating the small wins, but also we're doing this for informational purposes. So we need to make sure that we're looking at what went wrong or what could have gone better. Was it distractions? Did you overcommit? Did things pop up and you have to pivot and you didn't quite have a pivot plan? Or in pivoting, what was originally a priority coming into the month became not a priority in the month? Like, what is it? So the best thing that you can do as you look back and reflect over the month is to ask yourself, what went well, what felt off? So if you take time to look at the month and you're like, okay, this went good, this not so much. So for example, if you set out a goal to to plan your week each week, and you realize that the end of the weeks got busy and you didn't have time to actually plan, so therefore you didn't plan. What can we do better about that? Maybe if we see that typically our Saturdays are busy, maybe we want to plan the week on Friday or Sunday or whatever the day was that was becoming really busy. Maybe we need to choose a different day to plan the week. And so we want to make sure we tie the good or tie the negative to facts, not just feelings. We want to be able to do that because in doing that, again, this is for informational purposes, this is for data purposes. We can start with that data, and in using that data, we can use that to make a bridge to give us clarity. So we know the end result that we wanted, but when we look at the data, we didn't get to the end result. Why didn't we? That's the bridge that we're working to create, giving yourself that clarity. And so after you take the time to look and to reflect over the month, what happened, what did you plan to happen, and what actually happened, you can then examine that. And we talked about it a little bit with the reflection aspect, but in this phase, you're going to really spot the patterns. You're going to look for like those pressure points, those things that, I wanted to do this, but I did that instead. So we want to see what actually worked. What did you actually do? Because if we can look at it, we can understand that this is what I plan to do, but this is the reality of what happened. And the reality of this happened because of the need to pivot, the fact that I was distracted, the fact that I didn't have a game plan, I was overworked, I was stressed, or whatever it might be. You can then figure out what's draining you, i.e., what is the problem? Why did you set this goal but not actually hit it? And maybe the reality is you set the goal and you didn't hit it because you set the goal and you never looked at it again. So what is the pattern? Like, what are the patterns that you're seeing? Are you not planning? Are you not checking in on your goals? Are you consistently over committing? Are you overbooking yourself? Are you underestimating the time that it takes to get something done, so therefore you're not able to get all the things done because you don't plan enough time for it? Are you not paying attention to your capacity or your energy level? Are you overcommitting? Because if you look and you can see that I'm overcommitting, I'm underestimating the amount of time, I'm saying yes to too many things, what you then need to do, understand, acknowledge, and ask yourself is, am I still saying yes to things that don't serve me? In this season of my life, am I still saying yes to things that I need to be saying no to? Things that I should be saying no to? Things that aren't serving me in this place? Because sometimes the pressure is getting worse because you're not paying attention to it. Like, I remember, I don't know exactly how it happened, but growing up, my mom used to always use a pressure cooker to like can peas and tomatoes, and I don't know what else she can, but to can stuff. And I remember one time, again, I don't fully remember how this happened, but I know the pressure cooker, I don't want to say exploded, but exploded in the sense of the peas that were being canned or pressurized, some kind of way ended up on the ceiling. Like the top split off, so I don't know if, and I know when you have a pressure cooker, it starts pressurizing and then the thing like spits out the steam or whatever, and she used to have to go like tap it and hit it. So I don't know if she didn't tap it and hit it. I don't know what happened because I was too young to understand how a pressure cooker worked. I knew it made noise. I knew you tapped it. I knew it was hot. I knew it was dangerous. I knew enough to stay away from it. But like, what was the disconnect? This thing does this, and this is what it's supposed to do. But something happened. The pressure point was reached, and the pressure wasn't reduced. And I love me some Grey's Anatomy. So the episode that happened the other week was something about the girl had like a bleed on her brain, and they had to get it off, but it was really close to like the hemoglobin. No, something. It was close to something, and they had to get the pressure off. But sometimes releasing pressure is a sensitive thing. You can't just turn the valve and just let it go. You have to slowly let it out. And so when you can look at your life and you can look at the areas in which you are consistently overcommitting, overbooking yourself, ignoring your energy, ignoring your capacity, you're getting to the point to where your pressure is getting worse. And you're reaching and getting yourself to that boiling point, that eruption point, that point at which there might not be any turning back. And so if you find yourself going through that, like approaching burnout, you need to ask yourself, are your goals currently aligned with your capacity, with your current energy level, or just with this version of you? Because sometimes we set goals and we don't realize it potentially at the time, but we're setting goals because they said we needed to do this. Because once you check in with that goal, you might realize that it's not aligned with who you are, what you're doing, this current version of yourself. Or if it is a goal that is aligned with that, based off of this season, you might not have the capacity to pursue it with that energy, with that vigor, with that stamina. And so if you find yourself continually repeating the same mistake over and over and over again, you haven't studied your patterns. You haven't found the patterns. You haven't figured out where the pressure point is that needs to be relieved. And so what you need to do is do that. Do the work to examine and study the patterns. Because in doing that, it brings awareness. And once you're aware of the problem, the situation, you're able to then see the options. Because it's going to give you the clarity that you need to be able to move on. If you don't take the time to look and to examine, you're not going to be able to execute. You're not going to be able to reset with intention. You can't shift what it is you're not acknowledging. You can't shift what it is you're not examining. Because if you don't know what needs to change, how are you going to change it? And that brings me to the last point, the execution aspect, resetting with intention. When you start looking at and really thinking about, what do I want for this next month? For example, what is it that I want for this iteration, this version of me? You might see that we need to do some resetting. We need a new game plan. And if you want to have, create, and most importantly, stick to a plan, it needs to be one that feels good to you. It needs to be one that you're able to keep up with. It needs to be one that's sustainable. Because in having that, a plan that feels good, that's sustainable, that, is in alignment with this version of you, your capacity, your energy, all of that, that's how you're going to get results. So in order to execute, you have to reset with intention. The reason I'm telling y'all every single week to do a brain dump, make your to-do list, and when it's time for the last week of the month, like now, I'm telling you to plan and start thinking about your month ahead. It's for this reason. When you can understand your capacity, when you can understand your non-negotiables, those are going to be the fixed things on your schedule. And then you're going to build your days and your weeks around that. Because if you know these non-negotiables and these things that aren't moving, you can look at those things and say, because generally speaking, it's all going to be something you've done before. And so you're going to be able to look at it and see and say, I know how I typically feel doing X, Y, and Z thing. Let me take my energy and capacity in line with that. For me, I started last week starting to plan for the month of June because I know this week, i.e. my true planning week for the month, I'm in trial. And though tomorrow's a holiday, so I have that advantage of helping me jumpstart, relax, all the things, I know that typically when I'm in trial, it's unpredictable. Unpredictable in the sense of depending where we are on a witness, we might take a shorter lunch break. Depending on where we are with a witness, we might not leave, right at 5. And for me, I'm gonna be honest, I typically leave work about 4:45-ish for the day. So even leaving at 5 is already 15 minutes later, which means I'm hitting more traffic to get home. And so because of that, I know that when it comes to what happens outside of work, coaching clients, podcast interviews, just working the business after work, and honestly, even during my lunch break, which I typically do, I need to be much more intentional about what it is that I'm putting on my to-do list, what it is that I'm committing to, because my ability to execute, i.e. do those things, might be limited and might need to be revamped based off of the capacity that I typically have when I'm in trial. There are times where I plan for not having a lunch break or being, leaving work later, and it's a week where either based off where we are with the witnesses, the judge's other obligations, I get a full lunch break. And so I'm able to get me a walk in, eat, spending a little bit of time working and resetting, or, leaving on time to where I can get home and get some things done. But I rather plan for the more likely than not, meaning typically the judges, understandably, they want to use their time wisely. They want to make sure that these jurors, the citizens of the county, aren't having to take off unnecessary time. And if we tell them, this week, for example, it's a holiday week, we could tell them it's going to be a 4-day trial, and then if it isn't, it's going to roll over into the following week, which means we got to go through a whole weekend and all of that. We want to make sure that we're planning properly, not just in court and with trial, but in life. And so when you really look at your capacity, your energy, and your non-negotiables and build your plan or your schedule around that, it'll help you. And so having this weekly reset time, i.e. for me, my Saturday when I do my brain dump, check my calendar, update my planner, make my to-do list, is vital because it helps me to know what's coming, and so I can create a plan. And by me creating a plan, I oftentimes am more able to prevent some of that chaos from happening. Most times when my weeks are chaotic, I didn't plan, or I didn't plan properly. And yes, there are going to be times that even when you plan, things pop up that are emergencies and you have to adjust and pivot for those. More times than not, proper planning prevents poor performance. So if you can look at and start thinking about, look at your June calendar overview. We're going into summer. School's about to be out. You might have travel time planned, trainings, whatever the case may be. Look at your month of June as the overview and use that to understand your anchor points. Use that to figure out what are your top 3, no more than 5, priorities for the month that are going to align with your vision for this version of you. The vision of the person that you are now or the person that you're becoming. We want to make sure that in planning the month and closing out the month of May and going into June, that you're not just reacting to life. You're planning for life. You're looking at, you're examining, and you're executing on the game plan that you have for this version, this iteration of you as you continue to move and transition into the next version and iteration of you. Just like this month of May into the month of June. They all come together. Because if you keep going from month to month unprepared, you're going to be playing catch up. And that's just going to keep bringing you chaos. The same way that I realized and acknowledged 2 months ago or so that I say I plan for the month, the last week of the month ahead, but sometimes that last week is a split week. So half of, for example, April, half April, half May. And so when I don't have that full week because I'm still trying to finish out and close out one month to make sure I'm not just jumping into the next month, it made my planning time shorter. And if one half of the week was busier than the other, it made me come into the month feeling unprepared because the calendar has flipped months and days and I'm still in the other months and the days. And so it's time for you to take out your planner, take out your pen, to celebrate your wins, to do the reflection, to ask yourself the questions, to start planning smarter, to stop trying to plan harder. And if that's where you're at in life, if that's where you're at in these days, it's time to have a conversation and to look at and to think about what that will look like for you as you kind of go into and go through these phases. Because whether you're scattered, whether you're unsure, whether you have dread, whether you have stress, whether you have overwhelm, whether you're just stuck, you can get out of that through reflecting, through creating this game plan, this realistic game plan, through celebrating those wins and building that momentum to reset your energy and to put you in the place to really win. So if you really want to close out this month like a boss, if you really want to go into the month of June, you need to do the work to do so. And one way that you can do the work is to book a personalized productivity audit, and we can talk about what a productivity strategy session will do for you. I get it. You're saying you want help, but you don't have the time to commit to one-on-one coaching. You don't have the time for 6 weeks of coaching. A productivity strategy session is a single session, 60 to 90 minutes. We can get together and we can talk about creating you a game plan, creating you a schedule that you can utilize for these summer months and beyond. But in this season, in this version, in this iteration of you, what do you need to help you to be successful? What do you need to understand and to maximize your time? What is it that you need? If you're really ready to close out this month and this season like a boss, let's have a conversation. Let's talk. Comment the word boss below and I'll reach out, or you can just go straight to the link in the bio and we can do this thing. We can figure out what it is that you need to help you to get to the place that you're looking to go. And so I hope that this Success Started series has been beneficial and has been helpful to you, to help you to look by reflecting over this month what worked, what didn't, what needs to change, doing it without judgment, but doing it for the data, to examine and spot the patterns, the good and the bad, but most importantly, looking for those pressure points, those pain points need to be adjusted and shifted. And then from there, being able to execute, creating that game plan to reset with intention and to set yourself up to truly close out this month and prepare for the month ahead. So if you're looking for support and accountability, or you're not really sure where to begin, you want to figure out if this is something that I can help you with, comment the word boss below, or again, head to the link in the bio and let's have a conversation to see what that would look like for us to work together and get you the help and the support that you need on a short-term basis. And when I say a short-term basis, I'm not saying that this won't work long-term, but if you're like, I don't really want to commit to, 6 weeks of coaching and things like that. So it's been Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday of, you've guessed it, the Success Starter series. We'll be back next Sunday. Maybe same time, possibly, most likely different place. But to kick off the month of June, new theme, new topic, same actionable steps. So until next week, guys, it's been Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach. Coach Lee is